Details continue to emerge about the alleged Fort Hood shooter, Major Nidal Malik Hassan, as the news media, investigators, and the country try to understand what led to this mass murder at Fort Hood. The Washington Post's Dana Priest reported today on an incident in June 2007 when Major Hassan was supposed to have discussed a medical topic with Army doctors at Walter Reed Army Medical Center. He instead gave a presentation recommending that the U.S. military allow Muslim soldiers to be released as conscientious objectors from any war that would have them fight against other Muslims. And as information about Major Hassan's past comes to light by means of legitimate journalism, the top-ranking Republican on the House Intelligence Committee, Congressman Maddow-Hoekstra, disclosed yet more information to the Washington Post, telling the paper that Major Hassan not only sent emails to a radical cleric in Yemen, but received emails back as well. Quote, "For me, the number of times that this guy tried to reach out to the imam was significant. I believe that the responses from Alaki, the cleric, were maybe pretty innocent. But the very fact that he sent email to this guy and got responses would be quite a concern to me." Why is it Pete Hoekstra who's taking it upon himself to tell the press that this radical cleric was having his email read by U.S. intelligence agencies? The FBI had not said publicly that this cleric had been emailing Hassan. The CIA, the NSA, the White House, nobody else had reported that this cleric had been emailing Hassan. This is just Pete Hoekstra letting us know and letting the radical cleric who's under surveillance know that he's under surveillance. We called Congressman Hoekstra's office today to ask about how he got this information and why he decided to disclose it to the press. They referred us to the spokesman for the Republicans on the House Intelligence Committee. So we asked him if there was any concern that Hoekstra's one-man disclosure would be a tip-off to the cleric in Yemen that the U.S. had been watching him. Said Hoekstra's office, quote, excuse me, this is not Hoekstra's office, this is the Republican staffer for the Intelligence Committee, excuse me. This staffer told us, quote, "I do not know. Guessing, since he was deported, he knew he was a target anyways." Don't know. Guessing it might have been okay. Okay, except that according to the 9/11 Commission, the cleric in question was not even deported. He left the U.S. and reportedly went to Yemen on his own accord. So the top Republican staffer on the House Intelligence Committee is telling us that the top Republican on the House Intelligence Committee is disclosing information about the investigation that no one else is disclosing on the basis of an uninformed guess that maybe that surveillance target maybe already knew he was being watched, but who knows? Intelligence Committee Chairman Sylvester Reyes, a Democrat, said in a statement today, quote, "I am disappointed that some have rushed to the news media with unfounded information in order to gain headlines. I hope that my colleagues will refrain from speculation, pray for those who were affected by this tragic incident, and let investigators do their work." Congressman Hoekstra, who you may have heard is running for governor in Michigan, complained all weekend that he, a member of the House Intelligence Committee, had not received briefings on the Fort Hood situation. There was a congressional briefing on Monday. That very night, Monday night, Congressman Hoekstra went on cable TV news to admit that he was missing it.
But tonight you've had a briefing?
Well, there was a briefing that was given in Washington. And one of the reasons that I wanted the briefing on Saturday is that we were in session. We were going to be in session all day on Saturday. We were until, about 11 o'clock Saturday night. I knew that the House of Representatives was then going to be gone for more than a week. I wanted access to that information before we left town. There was a briefing today, but there were no House members at that briefing. We're out of town.
I am outraged that they did not brief me at a time that would be more convenient for me to be campaigning for office in Michigan. I'm outraged. I'd like to continue to complain about the timing of the briefing that I left town and didn't receive. Congressman Hoekstra has been trying to burnish his national reputation by using his position on the Intelligence Committee to exploit intelligence issues for maximum political gain for a long time now. He recently co-authored an opinion piece in the Washington Times with baby as prop using Congressman John Shadegg, which said that President Obama is, quote, "at war with the U.S. intelligence community." Congressman Hoekstra can allege whatever he wants about the president, but at least it's not the president who's trying to score political points by broadcasting to the world secret information about who the intelligence services have under surveillance. Joining us now is Chris Hayes, Washington editor of The Nation and contributor to the book on Sarah Palin, Going Rouge. Good evening, Chris. Nice to see you.
Good evening. I think that Shadeg's granddaughter had a co-byline on that op-ed as well, just FYI.
Maddie knows that President Obama is at war
exactly.
Chris, Pete Hoekstra is in a privileged position to get access to a lot of classified and very sensitive information because he's the senior-most Republican on the Intelligence Committee. What is his reputation on intelligence matters and the politics thereof?
Yeah, his reputation is as an epic grandstander. You know, there's been a lot of reporting on this over the years, various intelligence issues that have come before the committee. I mean, this was the guy who, in 2006, called a press conference to great fanfare to announce that the weapons of mass destruction had been found in Iraq. All right, this is the same person who has accused the CIA of lying to him many times, and then turned around when Nancy Pelosi said the CIA hadn't told him the truth about torture and interrogation techniques, said that it was just obviously absurd that the CIA would ever lie to Congress, and now is turning around saying the executive was withholding information. So this is what he does from his perch in the Intelligence Committee.
What about the substance of his allegation that he wanted a briefing? The shooting happened on Thursday. He wanted a briefing on Saturday because he was then going to leave town, and by the time there was a briefing on Monday, he was still outraged because he was campaigning.
Well, A, he can fly back, and B, I don't understand the rush, honestly. Why? I mean, you've seen this take over, I mean, the news media as well, but a politician particularly. The person who perpetrated this very heinous act is still alive. There is no, you know, as far as we know, and it seems that there's no outstanding threat, so there's no reason that everybody has to rush to anything. And that goes for every single dimension of this story, whether it's us in the press or whether it's politicians. You know, Barack Obama said back, you know, at a press conference once that, quote, he'd like to know what he was talking about before he opens his mouth, and I think that Pete Hoekstra should probably take the same advice.
In thinking about the overall national response, really the governmental response to what happened on Thursday, are there sort of competing strategies in evidence between the way the administration is handling the Fort Hood shootings and what Congressman Hoekstra is doing? Does this seem to reflect a larger political approach to this tragedy?
Well, I think it's, you know, I think it's partisan grandstanding. I think they want to find something to sort of impugn the current administration. But I will say this, from a separation of powers perspective and from a disclosure perspective, no matter how bad, you know, to what degree the bad faith that Pete Hoekstra is engaging in, if his partisan incentives are such to press the executive to disclose the maximum amount possible, I think that can be all to the good in the end. I mean, that's the kind of role that you want Congress playing. You want them to have a slightly adversarial relationship to the executive when you're dealing with these kind of intelligence matters. And so, as sort of grandstanding and demagogic as Pete Hoekstra can be, I still think in the end you might get kind of a net benefit from it if the administration has to, you know, disclose and say to the public exactly what went wrong where.
There is this argument among members of the intelligence community, members of the intelligence committees in the House and Senate, that they want wider briefings. Not all of them are asking for it, but they're saying don't just brief the Gang of Eight, brief all of us. And implicit in that is their claim that they can be trusted with the information.
Yes.
If Hoekstra crossed the line here and disclosed the subject of an American surveillance effort by disclosing that these emails came from the imam back to Hassan, is it possible that the intelligence committees will discipline him for having done that as a way of reestablishing their own credibility?
You know, that's a really interesting idea. I mean, if you talk to people in the Intelligence Committee, and I tend to be on the side of more congressional oversight, I mean, strongly on the side of that, they're always saying, their counter-argument, number one, is we cannot trust members of Congress when we tell them things because they go and leak them to the press. So this sort of thing is really, really not helpful if your end goal is to actually have more oversight, which I think, you know, is absolutely necessary. I think the Gang of Eight system is broken, but to expand past the Gang of Eight system, you're going to have to be able to prove that you can, you know, not go running the press every time you get briefed.
Chris Hayes of The Nation, thanks very much for joining us tonight, Chris.
Thank you, Rachel.